My friends, I want to thank you for watching this video. If you like what you see, please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell. And if you think you're already subscribed, please check to make sure YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you without your permission. It happens every day. And if you really like what you see, please consider becoming a channel member or even leaving a super thanks donation to help keep us going. I promise to answer each and every one I receive. Thank you for watching, my friends, and now, on to the video. My friends, today we here at the Center of the Earth are delighted to be bringing you an interview with a Disney employee who is willing to speak out about things Disney doesn't want you to know. A first-hand account of how things are really going at Disney's theme parks, and I can tell you, it ain't going well. This individual, codenamed Agent Inferno, knows what he's talking about because he actually has first-hand experience with what he's telling us, and in this video he's going to confirm some things we've been treating as rumors and reveal some brand new information that I found intriguing, to say the least. Folks, it's not been a great summer for Disney. There's been a lot of bad news in the news about the parks. For example, the Incredicoaster at Disney's California Adventure stranding a bunch of people, 20 people, at the top of the ride for like an hour. And then Tiana's Bayou Adventure, the replacement for Splash Mountain, seems to be somewhat flammable. And the animatronics, reportedly from anecdotes and reports that I've gotten, the animatronics are unreliable and the whole ride hasn't worked basically properly and completely since it started. And I hear that park attendance is down. Agent Inferno, welcome to the show. What can you tell us about the current state of attendance at Disney theme parks?
Yeah, it's a very poorly kept secret on management's side because they're doing classes and things like that to address it for the employees. But guest satisfaction is just down. You have a whole bunch of complaints coming in. The way it's being spun to us is that it is probably the highest amount of complaints they've ever received at any given time, while simultaneously guest satisfaction is just in the toilet. So it's an interesting time. Yeah, there's a lot of complaints, for instance, about the attractions being down all the time or shutting down all the time. And I think what's kind of compounding that frustration is when they called it Genie Plus. Now I believe it's going to be called Lightning Lane because they're trying to follow what Florida's doing. But essentially, what it boils down to is a lot of guests are coming in, and some are using the system where you can basically pay to book a time frame to come do the ride. It used to be Fast Pass. Fast Pass was free, though. In my opinion, Fast Pass worked a lot better. It was more popular also because it was free. But some of these guests are paying anywhere from like $10 to $20 a ride sometimes. And then they're getting to the ride, and it's broken. And so then they have to say, well, okay, sorry, it's going to be down for who knows how long. Would you like to go to this ride instead? Would you like to go to that ride instead? But what sometimes happens is then they go to that other ride. Like, let's say they were going to Soarin', it was down at the time for whatever reason, so then they have to go to Incredicoaster. But then they get down to Incredicoaster, and well, kind of like you mentioned, maybe Incredicoaster is down as well, or people were trapped up there, unfortunately. And then they're done, well, how would you like another ride then, on top of that? And then they're going to another ride. So essentially they're on a ride, they're being taken for a ride, it's just not the ride that they want to go on.
That sounds terrible. I mean, as a guest, when you come all the way to Disneyland, frequently it's a big deal. It's the summer family vacation, and for things like this to be going wrong, I can understand why customers or guests would be really upset that basically their one summer vacation that's so expensive is being ruined.
Yeah, and I think that's we're seeing that. We're seeing that reflected in like just skyrocketing guest complaints, because there's a whole procedure all a guest ever has to do, and I actually recommend it if they're coming in as a guest and having problems. They just have to go over to the guest relations kiosk or anywhere in the park where there's guest relations and say, hey, I want to file a complaint. The complaint will be filed. It gets then pulled into like this Excel spreadsheet of like all the different complaints and generates a number. But yeah, that number, from what we're hearing and being told consistently, is at an all-time low, while those complaints are skyrocketing to an all-time high, basically. I know you had mentioned about the attractions as well. Yeah, Disney did lose a lot of their Imagineers as well. So I'm not, as bad as it sounds, I'm not surprised that they're having a lot of issues with their rides, etc. Because a few years back, when Iger was pushing for the move to Florida, for instance, with the Imagineers, he wanted to establish like his own sort of little. The easiest way, I guess, would be to compare it to Apple. I suppose how Apple has their Apple campus or university in Silicon Valley. He wanted to do the same thing for Disney and the Imagineers in Florida. And then he had the falling out with DeSantis. So I don't want to make it too political or anything. They were finally being called on a lot of the illegal activities they were doing, and that fell through. But in the meantime, they had been treating the Imagineers very poorly as well. They told them basically, and there's even a lawsuit in California now, like some of the Imagineers. I'll get to that in a second. But basically, just kind of in the basic order of events, Iger said, we're going to build this campus, and all the Imagineers, you guys all have to be ready to move over here within the next few months. And that kind of left them scrambling. And then they even took out a newspaper article that said something like really, really cold, in my opinion, where it basically said, oh, we want to thank the Imagineers for their years of service, and we know that they're not going to be able to join, not that all of them are going to be able to join, and so we really wish them well in their future endeavors elsewhere. And it was like somebody told them that was a good idea, but I think you've seen a lot of they're bringing in a lot of like yes men, a lot of people that just don't have that empathy, and they just put out stuff like that all the time and wonder why the cast also unhappy. But then you fast forward a little bit, and then that is no longer happening. And so a lot of those Imagineers actually that did leave or did quit, that weren't going to be able to make it and went past the timeline, and they were like, okay, well, thanks for your service. Sadly, they went to other parks. So they went to like Universal. They went to, some go to Knott's. There's a lot of Disney people who, if they get kind of pushed out as far as executive level or management, or they just get kind of fed up with how they're being treated as well, they'll go to Knott's. They'll go to Universal. And it's kind of ironic because you have some of the seasoned Imagineers are building Epic Universe right now. So they pushed out like their most seasoned people, and now they're working for their competition, and then they wonder, well, how are these guys so good? How are they it's because it's the same people that they threatened to fire if they couldn't move to Florida years ago, and now that move's not even happening. So they pushed them out for no reason, sadly.
So Disney has done its own brain drain. In other words, it has drained its own talent pool by abusing and mistreating their very best employees, who then have gone on to great success over at their rivals. And now Epic Universe from Universal is kind of like an existential threat down in Florida. And this is something that perhaps Disney has helped Universal out in this regard. It's giving them their best talent, their best former Imagineers.
Yeah, they're kind of reaping what they sowed as far as how they treated them. Because they really just told them, like, hey, if you can't move, sorry, we're going to let you go. And then they had to cancel the move because they lost all the district rights, etc. And now it's a different district with different guidelines. But it's unfortunate that they even went that past. But again, the hubris, they were like, if you're not going to move, then we're not going to employ you. And they found someone that will employ them. And it just happens to be their biggest competitors.
Good Lord. So no wonder that the guest satisfaction level has gone down. This used to be billed as the happiest place on earth, but I don't think it's very happy these days. Can you tell us, just in general, the categories of guest dissatisfaction? I mean, just in general, what do they complain about the most?
So it's kind of interesting because in my personal experience, it seems like Disney really doesn't want to know exactly what the problem is, so they lump it all together. So you have like cleanliness thrown in there with satisfaction as far as the rides. So everything is kind of thrown into this one number, When the reality is, if they really wanted to locate it, I would think most would track a lot of the stuff individually, but they don't. So it's almost like they kind of want to know, but they don't at the same time. They just want to be able to pat themselves on the back. But the attractions breaking down is one, especially when they're spending like $15-$20. Occasionally there's cleanliness where if like the parks are a little spread out for the day, maybe they might have some issues with cleanliness, etc. But it tends to be mostly the service stuff. You have complaints over food, quality, etc. People demanding refunds at that point. I've even had to deal with guests where they come up to me and they're screaming because they're saying none of the rides are working today. Like every time they would get a replacement ride, for instance, that ride was also broken down, and they just felt like they wasted their money at that point, and they wanted a refund, and they wouldn't have come if they had known that half the rides were going to be broken down, for instance.
Good God in heaven. Wow. So Disney is on the ropes, not only in terms of their stock, but also in terms of their parks now, because they've lost talent. The guests are not happy with the quality of the rides and the frequency with which the rides are broken down, the food. It just seems like Disney is kind of on the skids these days, and it doesn't seem like they really want to fix anything. You said they're not interested in breaking down the specific reasons and addressing those specific reasons for the dissatisfaction. They just try to generally recognize it and tell cast members to do better, essentially. And then, obviously they're not making money off all of this, acolyte stuff, all these substandard propagandistic endeavors that are what pass for entertainment at Disney these days. So all in all, it just seems like it's a very unhappy place. Anything you would like to add before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I think there's one other aspect to factor in as well. So Disney does like putting, as bad as it sounds, they like putting kind of yes people into management positions these days as well. There used to be when I first hired in like decades ago, there used to be this sort of standard of quality understanding that there'd be like some sort of specialization, training, degree, some sort of merit toward a position. And they've just taken, over the past few years, more of a, well, let's just get someone in a position and then we can mentor them to where we need them to be. So they might not even have any previous training, they might not have any previous experience, etc. But as long as they're liked enough, or they say yes enough, they're put into these key positions. And so that's also another reason that we're seeing there's a lot of managers without any formal training that don't even really know how to do the job. And I'm not trying to like trash on managers or anything. This is their system. It's systemic. They switched to an entirely mentoring thing. I mean, there's also, I don't want to make it too political, but there's pushes for DEI involvement and things like that, quotas. So it just became this issue of they just started looking at management positions as well. We can put someone here, and then don't worry, we can teach them how to do the job after they have it. And then they wonder why they don't know how to do the job, or that they're not able to do the job, etc., or why they're having so many issues. And then the sad reality is they also even have an adversarial position with their managers sometimes too, where they have to essentially justify, as bad as it sounds, their existence. Like every so often they have to prove, they're basically called into a room, and it's basically like you're being called in to plead your case to not be executed, so proverbially, like basically fired, where you're like, well, they'll have to tell them this is what we've done, and these are all the different ways that they've padded their resume since getting the position that helped the company in some way. And so you have a lot of people doing these nonsensical projects to try and spin not being fired, basically, when the reality is they could either be the best or the worst manager in the history, but they're having to like sometimes make up these projects as well just to make it look like they're falling within the Disney system. It's gotten really bad too in that sense. So you have a lot of people heading divisions that don't actually know how to head the division or have no prior experience at all, but they said yes enough times to the right person, and so they got the job.
And they were the right DEI demographic for the job as well, right?
Sometimes, yeah, I'm sure that has played factor pretty heavily as well. There have been pushes into that but even before that, this whole yes man mentality was on the horizon, and it's only kind of been compounded with the other aspects as well, where they're trying to fill quotas or maintain hiring bonuses for filling said quotas, etc.
Well, I want to thank you for this update about the parks situation and the customer dissatisfaction around those California parks. Really appreciate you spending time with us today, my friend. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
From the center of the earth, this is Dictor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha